Hi, everyone. Welcome to the OSN Skills Summit, first round of breakouts. You are here in the new member orientation. We are joined by Kacey Thorne, the Director of Skills Architecture at WGU. I just want to let everybody know that I will be over here in the chat. We will have some time to answer your questions at the end of Kacey's presentation. So please feel free to jump in there. Any burning questions or comments or suggestions that you might have, we'd love to hear from you. Kacey?
Thank you so much, Kelly. Good day to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us for our first annual Open Skills Summit. Again, my name is Kacey Thorne, Director of Skills Architecture with Western Governors University, and it is a pleasure to be here with you this morning. So the OSN, we heard a little bit about its origin this morning. It has been a wild ride in a little over the year that the OSN has actually been established. And I have the pleasure of walking you through some of the progress that we have made to date, a little bit of the information about how you can join into the OSN in general, as well as any working groups that you might be interested in. And then we'll do a little bit of a history of the origin of OSN through a case study from Western Governors University. So what is the Open Skills Network? We are basically a coalition of employers, educators, military, other government agencies, both nationally and internationally, that have come together to really advance skills-based education and hiring as a standard practice. We are focused on developing and implementing a common language around skills. And that common language is what we will learn about today, known as a rich skills descriptor. It is a data schema in which we can describe skills and make them open, accessible, and machine actionable. We're also committed to reducing inequity in the labor market by helping people get hired for the things that they can do and not solely for the credentials that they hold. We are laser focused on creating a more equitable landscape for every learner worker, and that is really the driving force behind the OSN. So some of the progress that we have made to date, we officially launched in September of 2020. I can't believe that it has only been that long ago. We have had amazing momentum. A lot of it has been sheerly by word of mouth, just a lot of people, organization recognizing the power and the value in open skills to help not only advance skills-based education and hiring, but really to help open pathways to opportunity for every individual learner worker. We are currently at over 1,000 plus individual network members and over 350 partnered organizations. We've stood up 5 working groups that have helped us with specific focus areas to work towards our mission. The first being a technical working group that is responsible for the RSD schema and the open skills management tool, which we'll talk a little bit about in just a few minutes. The governance working group that has gotten us to our first iterations of an organizational charter. Policy work groups, because we know as an organization, there are many opportunities in terms of policy advocacy and change that need to happen for this movement to really take off. We also have just stood up our newest working group around open recognition, which is a focus on helping individuals be recognized for the skills that they have demonstrated across a lifetime of work and learning, and the ability to be able to port those skills and that evidence from institution to institution. And then lastly, our fabulous market leadership group, who I'd also like to give a shout out to, who has helped to pull off this amazing summit this morning. They are very much responsible for the promotion of the Open Skills Network and the tools and technologies that we are bringing to our members. We appointed an interim executive director in January of 2021, Sarah DeMark, who you heard from this morning. And we completed our first ever open skills pilots in June of this year, which resulted in the first open skills libraries to the market. And we are so excited to hear more about those across the next 2 days. These are our work group coordinators for governance. We have Matt Gee from Bright Hive and Phil Long from BHC Consulting. Nate Otto from Concentric Sky and Jeannie Kitchens are our coordinators for our technical group. Our open recognition work group is overseen by Justin Mason and Julie Kern. Our market leadership group is led by Debbie Hughes, and we have an open opportunity for a coordinator in this particular group as of this month. And rounding out our working groups for policy, we have Sharon Liu from JFF and Chris Bonnell from Western Governors University. So the purpose of our work groups, I touched on this just a little bit briefly. Our governance working group to date has largely been responsible for helping us set up the way that we as an OSN organization will govern ourselves to get us to our first iteration on a charter for the organization, and also exploring what it might look like for us to organize as an entity. What does the future of OSN hold? So there's a lot of work going into that space. There's also some work from the governance working group around potentially a hosted instance of the open skills management tool by the OSN, and also how we can support additional pilots as we get some of this work off the ground. Our technical working group is largely responsible for maintaining the RSD schema and the open skills management tool, which we will be discussing in just a little bit, as well as any other open tools that the OSN sees opportunity for to help us move this mission forward as the momentum grows and as we get more sophisticated and more knowledge about skills-based education and hiring. The market leadership group is really responsible for socialization, promotion, amplification of the open skills movement. Our policy working group identifies opportunities for advocacy in the policy arena as it relates to skills-based education and hiring practices. And then the open recognition group is a group that intersects really quite well with public policy on how we might empower learner workers to better leverage and be recognized for the skills that they are earning through a lifetime of work and learning. So here's just some work group contact and meeting information, the cadence of the different working groups. These slides will be available to you after the presentation today. Please feel free to come back here and reference them. Let's talk a little bit now about how to join a work group. So the first step is, upon completing new member orientation, which you are completing today, go to the OSN website, fill out a membership form, and then you'll see an opportunity in an area to join a specific working group. So if you are interested in just keeping up to speed and participating in the OSN generally, that option is available to you, as well as more involvement with specific working groups. If those are of interest, please join us. And here's just a snapshot and a shout out to some of our initial early partners in the OSN. Again, a link to the website so that you can get involved. We've got some nice momentum here. It's great to see a lot of the players at the table moving this open skills initiative forward. So why are skills so important? We had a really great panel discussion earlier in the summit about this very topic. What are skills? Why are they useful? And why all this energy right now around skills? They are important because they help us describe work in more granular, modular and flexible ways than we traditionally have. We have relied on job descriptions, which may or may not be to the level of detail where they're actually helpful in helping candidates understand what a particular job entails or a pathway to achieve that work role. They also help us to really break down, in many instances, very broad competencies. What are the discrete capabilities, behaviors that someone needs in order to perform a particular competency or job function? They also help us to define and adapt education and career pathways. So the more granular that we can get in truly understanding the skills that someone needs to be competent in a work role, the better we can construct career pathways and educational pathways to help provide learner workers with insights into the skills that they need to develop and acquire to help them meet their career aspirations. And then lastly, they help us connect job descriptions, resumes, and educational credentials in more transparent ways. So just as there is opportunity to be more specific and clear with job descriptions, there is absolutely more opportunity for us to be clear about the types of skills that a particular credential that an individual has represents. So we have a lot of opportunity across this ecosystem to leverage skills to provide more transparency into opportunity pathways. So let's talk a little bit about the origin of OSN, some of the applications of skills, and the early thought process around it. And we'll do this through the lens of Western Governors University. So at WGU, as Marnie mentioned in our earlier panel, we are a competency-based institution. We have been from our founding days. And we decided about 2 years ago to double down on that effort and to really start to embrace this skills notion at the time to help us provide better learning opportunities for our learner workers and to address this issue that we continue to see in feedback from employers that higher ed at large is not providing students with the skills that they need to be successful in the workforce. And as an educator, that is heartbreaking. And so at WGU, we decided we are going to tackle this head on. We're going to double down on our competency-based model and really start to understand the workforce demanded and relevant skills that underpin our programming. So as we started to explore this area, we had three main goals in mind. The first one was that we wanted to help build skills-denominated achievements for our students, meaning if I am a student at WGU and I earn this particular credential, what are the skills that that credential actually represents? What is it that I had to demonstrate in order to earn that credential? The second thing was that we wanted to be able to surface these credentials to an individual's electronic learner achievement wallet. So very much in the learning and employment record arena, we had that in our sights and understood that in order to make these kinds of digital skills denominated achievements actionable for our students, we needed to provide access to an electronic learner wallet for them to do so. And then the last thing that was one of the primary goals we had going into this was to provide what we would call powerful compassing insights for our learners. And when I use the term compassing, what I mean is transparency into pathways of opportunity, both education pathways as well as career pathways. So if I am a student, I have this particular career in mind, what are the skills that I need to develop to get there? What skills do I already have? And what is the delta between the two? And then once I know that, what are educational pathways that are available to me that will help me satisfy and fill that delta? What will help me fill that gap to achieve the career goals that I want to achieve? So as we set out on this skills journey, one of the very first aha moments that we had at WGU was there's not really a common definition around skills. And this was a bit of a shocker to me. When I took this role on with WGU and had the charge to really think through skills and how we were approaching them with our competencies, I was surprised that I couldn't just go out there and get the skills that I needed to align to our competencies, that we really had to start from the beginning and trying to define what a skill actually meant. So in order to do that, we looked to labor market insights to help guide us in the direction of what types of skills employers were looking for. So we worked with our partners at MZ Burning Glass to help us find what those skills were across different sectors. And the labor market information that we can get from labor market analytics is really powerful in giving signals. But what we found was that contextualization is everything and lacking. What communication looks like as a nurse versus a software engineer versus an air traffic controller is very different in those job roles, very different in application of context, very different in the tools that are being used to communicate, in the people that are being communicated with, and the things that those individual careers are communicating about. So we took the labor market insights and those key terms, those key signals into what the skills were that the labor market was looking for different job sectors. And we rolled up our sleeves and started working with strategic employer partners and hiring managers for these particular career areas and said, okay, as a software engineer, when you say you need someone with good communication, what does that mean? What does it look like? And what we would hear back is, well, we really need software engineers who are able to communicate code changes to both technical audiences as well as non-technical audiences. And for a nurse, we would hear things like, well, we need the nurse to be able to communicate patient status to the shift change nurse, but also be able to communicate patient status to the patient and the patient's family. Those are very different tactics for communication. And so we started collecting all of this information for different job roles and those different keyword signals that we were getting from labor market analytics. As we started collecting this information, those contextualized skill statements, along with the key words that we're finding from labor market insights, and the associated job roles and job codes from the BLS and ONET, as we started collecting all of those into these little data packages, we found that we didn't really have a great way to manage it. And when I say we didn't have a great way to manage it, I mean we were managing it in a massive spreadsheet. And this was kind of one of those things that as we started talking about this early work with other organizations, we realized that we weren't the only ones struggling with this problem, that there wasn't really a really great tool out there to be able to use to communicate skills and manage this kind of data in this way. At about that time, we also realized that this is really, really hard work and it takes a village. And we need to really start to pull together a larger coalition to not only build and contribute to the open skills movement in the form of open libraries. We really need to look at an open tool that allows organizations to be able to work outside of a spreadsheet in more scalable and manageable ways to create those open skills libraries and a way to share them with the broader community. And then lastly, we needed to think through what does it mean to use this data? How at WGU are we going to underpin our assessments, our curriculum, and our digital achievements with skills data? So this is where we got together with about 20 different organizations in spring of 2020 to talk through what it might look like to come together as a coalition to really start advocating for open skills and to think through what is the technology that we would need to manage this to move this movement forward. And as part of that discussion was the birth of what we now, as an open skills network, refer to as the Rich Skills Descriptor. And the Rich Skills Descriptor is what I like to describe as a little data package that is machine readable and searchable open data that provides the context behind what a skill looks like as applied for particular job roles. So it's a little package of data that includes keywords that industry is using to talk about skills. It includes and can include a link to dynamic labor market data so that wherever that skill is embedded digitally, access to the demand for that skill, geolocated demand for that skill is accessible. It contains other information about particular standards or existing frameworks that this skill might relate to. And because of the machine readable syntax that the Rich Skills Descriptor is authored in, it facilitates skill interoperability within digital credentials from both education or the workforce. You can also use the Rich Skills Descriptor as a mechanism for embedding really powerful skills intelligence into digital credentials and employment records via the learning and employment record. So the rich skills descriptor, as we started talking about this and in some of the knowledge that we had to contribute in this area at WGU into these early OSN conversations, once we knew how powerful the rich skills descriptor could be to moving skills-based education and hiring forward, this discussion then turned to, well, what do we do to facilitate this through technology and to be able to manage these libraries of rich skills descriptors and to be able to publish them openly so that we really can start to get a critical mass around open skills data and leverage that across sectors, employers, education, military, et cetera. So it was early days of the Open Skills Network where the Open Skills Management tool was dreamt up. It is a free open source tool to facilitate the production and authoring of RSD-based open skills libraries. These open skills libraries through the OSMIT tool can be published to the open web under a Creative Commons license so that any organization that leverages OSMIT can contribute to the larger network of open skills libraries that can be used for hiring and education practices. And what the open skills management tool really does is it allows for us to be able to publish skills through this tool in a standard machine readable syntax that really allows for the portability and interoperability of skills data within the digital credentialing space and within job descriptions. So this is just a snapshot of the UI of the Open Skills Management tool. I'm giving you a little bit of a spoiler alert here. The next breakout session that will actually be held in this room and facilitated by Allison Blackwell from Western Governors University will be a demo of the Open Skills Management tool. So if you are interested in it, please stay tuned. But what you're looking at here is just a snapshot of the UI. This is the WGU instance. You can see that it has a white labeled header, which is a capability and a feature of this tool. And then we are looking at a discrete library with a snapshot of two specific rich skills descriptors within this library, though I think you can see there are over 400 that are actually included in this particular view. And here is a couple snapshots of the UI when we've actually drilled into a rich skills descriptor on its own so that you can see some of the specific data fields that are captured in any individual RSD. It has a name. It has a contextualized skill statement, which is a description of what that skill actually looks like as performed for a particular job role. It has a field to associate those particular skills with currently ONET and BLS job codes. It has an area to further tag that skill with any additional keywords that we are gaining from real-time labor market data about how these skills might be showing up in current job descriptions. It has an opportunity to align an alignment field for multiple alignments. So if there are multiple external frameworks or standards or real-time labor market data that you want to link this rich skills descriptor to, it can be done within the RSD schema. And this is what you're seeing on the screen. Again, the Open Skills Management tool, it's a free open source tool and can be used for multiple use cases, be it military, education, hiring. We are really excited to talk to you more about the Open Skills Management tool. And I think this is going to leave us with just under 10 minutes for some Q&A, Kelly.
Thanks so much, Kacey. I'm typing into the chat right now. I'd like to hear some questions from our audience. Let us know. I see Jennifer is about to put in a question. Let us know what your burning questions are, you guys. All right, here we go. Jennifer asks, has the OSN tackled the concept of levels of skills? For example, beginning, intermediate, advanced?
Great question. So it is definitely something on our radar and has been part of the conversation to date. but not something that we have solved for yet. What I can share with you is our approach at WGU and how we're currently thinking about leveling is that in order to understand the level of a skill, you need to understand it really within another kind of layer of a wrapper, like a particular job role or a career trajectory. What does that skill look like as it increases in proficiency for that job role? So it's something that we are still exploring and playing with at WGU, how that relates to competencies, but there is a lot of opportunity and I think innovation potential still related to leveling and what that looks like for skills.
Thanks, Kacey. We have another question here that's coming in from Ashish. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Is there any linkage with ONET's current skills, knowledges, etc.?
Great question. So we do not and haven't to date created RSDs specifically for the KSAs within ONET, but as we are including the ONET job role codes and linking those to an RSD, the KSA information is available in that way. I do think there's opportunity for us to think through what it might look like in the future, having ONET and the KSAs through that authored as potentially RSDs, but a space that we still have opportunity to explore. Great question.
That would definitely be fascinating. Yeah. Okay, we have another question here from Dennis. What is OSN's approach to incorporating or not existing professional and or technical certifications, for example, IT certifications?
Ooh, good question. So there have been a couple of opportunities and ways that we have approached it on this front. In the cyberspace arena, one thing that we have seen is for organizations that have their own collections of cybersecurity skills in the form of, say, competencies or outcomes, they have aligned them well to the NICE framework. And that NICE framework can serve as an alignment within a discrete RSD. I do think one exciting prospect, especially once the open skills management tool is gaining speed and momentum, is if we similarly could get these standards written in RSD format, tagged with all of that really rich data to associate them with, and it makes them a lot more actionable in that case. As many of you know, a lot of the times when you're working with particular standards frameworks, they are in locked down PDFs or spreadsheets, Word documents that aren't really easy to work with. And so if we can work towards getting those types of frameworks into a structured data format like the RSD, I believe it will create a really powerful momentum for any standard framework. Another good question.
Thank you. I love getting the questions because they're always so different, and it's great to hear and learn from others on their skills journey. We have another question from Toya Green. Is the OSMID available for use? And if not, when?
So that is a spoiler alert that I am not going to give. I'm going to wait because this information will be provided to you in the next breakout. And I do believe that they'll be talking a little bit about this at the larger OSN convenings at either the end of the day today or tomorrow. So stay tuned.
Definitely. If you are interested in OSMID, stick right in this room because we will be doing that live demo. Another question from Cindy. Follow up on the level of skills. Things like connecting credentials frameworks would help with this. I believe it was part of Lumina's work, so it should be open source. Actually, I'm sorry, that is a comment, not a question. But any thoughts on that, Kacey?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. And I think this touches back a little bit on what Marnie was addressing earlier on the morning panel, was that there's a lot of work happening in this space as well when we think about leveling of credentials. The micro-credential space right now is so ambiguous. And really, when we think about it, even the degree space is a little bit ambiguous too. And the only thing that we can kind of count on with those is what we know the credit hour represents, and we know it's not enough. And so I think that you can take credentialing frameworks like DQP or connecting credentials that Lumina has done and think about what that might look like through the lens of the RSDs that could be associated with any of these particular credentials. And that can, I do believe, help in the leveling conversation. But again, it's taking it up a level and looking at those skills through another organizational lens, like a credentialing framework or a job pathway, in which you then determine what the appropriate RSD or skills are in that trajectory.
Thanks again, Kacey. I think we'll be able to hit this one last question real quickly from Ashish. Am I right in thinking that industry domains would be addressed by multiple RSDs?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. Thank you. Let me see if we've got any other questions. Oh, we do have one more question from Scott. Do you see a future where this work being done predominantly focused on hard skills can be scaled to capture soft skills as well?
Oh boy, do I. Yes. And there was some really great work that happened out of the OSN pilots in the 21st century skills realm. We have a lot of opportunity there because if you look at the labor market research, cross-cutting skills across multiple industries, like those ones that are a red thread across everything, are those soft skills. And so the rich skills descriptor schema, I think, is just as applicable for those quote unquote soft or power skills, as we like to call them at WGU, and the technical skills as well.
I'm super excited about that as well. Well, thank you all for your questions. And Kacey, thank you again for sharing all of this wonderful work with us, and also just for your passionate hard work at all times, especially over the last few years. I know I've been sort of like sitting on the sidelines, but it's an amazing effort, you all, that Kacey has been spearheading here, and we so appreciate it. So if you guys have any other questions that we didn't feel free to jump on over to openskillsnetwork.org. We've got all the contact information on there. Everything that is you're seeing here today has been recorded, as well as the slide deck. So you've got a bunch of amazing resources, and we are always happy to connect and collaborate. Hope you all enjoy the rest of the summit. And as we mentioned, stick right in here if you want to see that Osmit demo. If not, head back over to the breakout section and just choose another session. We will see you soon.